Your cell phone looks a little unusual there. Is that for taking super selfies?
Yeah, it kind of is. This actually is the Enhanced Visual Assessment System. It's a technology that's being used by health providers around the world to save women's lives in Africa, Latin America, and soon the heartland of America.
All right. I'll applaud that, but why just women and how just women?
Well, because when Levitz and I decided to start a company, our focus was to create a company that not only made a profit, but also had a purpose. And so we decided to save as many lives as quickly as possible. To do that, we focused on cervical cancer. Cervical cancer is a woman's disease, and it's the disease that causes the most death for women in low-resource settings. For no reason. Because if you catch in the first 5 years, you can treat it on the spot for less than $28 using the same equipment that Coca-Cola uses to carbonate its beverages.
Unbelievable. What are the global numbers for cervical cancer?
Well, you have 500,000 women every year diagnosed with cervical cancer when no one should be. And so it's an opportunity to save lives as quickly as possible, building a billion-dollar business, saving millions of lives every year.
Okay, David, you're the inventor. You allowed a smartphone to sniff out cancer?
Well, it doesn't actually sniff out cancer. This device is functionally equivalent to an imaging system that you have in gynecologist's office all across the United States, Israel, and the developed world. Except it's 10% of the size, 10% of the price, connected to the internet, and therefore infinitely smarter.
Okay, walk me through the process. What happens for a woman to have the advantage of this?
In most of the world, they don't have the laboratory infrastructure required for pap smears or HPV DNA tests, which are used in the US to detect cervical cancer.
Okay.
And so oftentimes the woman comes in, she lays on the table, the nurse practitioner inserts a speculum and puts in a thin layer of vinegar on the cervix. And then the nurse looks from the outside using a headlamp or a flashlight at something this big to see if an area this big turned white.
Okay. So you have a device now that's going to solve that problem. Why don't we, you want to show us it in action? Give us a demonstration, Ariel.
I'd love to. Would you be okay if I use Levitz as our model?
No problem. I think we'll work it out.
All right.
How are you going to do that?
Well, we're going to use his hand and not his cervix, because believe it or not.
It would be a medical miracle if
Yeah, it would be. So here, we'll show you how it works.
A woman comes to a clinic.
So a woman will come into a clinic and she'll lie on the table, and the nurse practitioner or nurse or midwife will conduct a basic pelvic examination. And the way it works is very simple. Usually what she would do is she would have a light behind her and she would be looking with her eye. Instead, we use a technology that she uses literally every day.
Ordinary smartphone.
Ordinary smartphone attached to a medical grade case. And she turns on the phone just like she would turn it on any other time. She opens up an app, just like she would.
Is there an app for curing cancer? In Israel, there is.
There is,
okay.
Yeah. And in each one of the instances is encrypted, so that it's used just like any other HIPAA-compliant service, creating a medical record. So you can add a new patient, add in patient information, age, numbers, HIV status, and very importantly, phone number, so we can have follow-on care and connectivity with that patient.
And this is in parts of the world where there may be no medical record keeping at all.
Or any records at all. And that's what we do. So we're enabling not only better imaging, we also enable the strengthening of the health system as a whole. And so then what we would do is we would focus on Levitz's hand in this case.
This is exactly what the process looks like with the light.
That's right. Well, I should turn on the light. So we're going to turn on the light. What I can do is I can focus on Levitz's hand. I can zoom in and zoom out in order to look at interesting areas. And if I would like to highlight vascularity, because cancer draws in more blood, I can turn on the green filter and take as many images as I want.
What does the green filter do?
The green filter helps highlight those areas that might be problematic due to vascularity changes. And then when you're done, by looking at the gallery, I can annotate those images, analyze those images, and most importantly, I can start marking my decision. And we lead the nurse provider through a workflow. And that's important because the 23 million nurses around the world who serve those 5 billion people who do not have access to physicians are generalists, and they're wonderful generalists. But to have expertise in every single subject area is difficult. So
you're actually supplementing their medical education with a cutting-edge process.
That's exactly right, and helping them for quality control and quality improvement. And so they can go through the process of of adding what it is, or let's say that they don't know what it is, they can press consult. and a physician from the network can help them, and over time our algorithms will be able to provide that automatically without the need of a physician.
So you're a bridge. This image goes to the cloud and actually can go from any remote place to Johns Hopkins University.
That's absolutely right. So it's not only is it a bridge, it's also an assistant mechanism that connects between the patient, the provider, and the health system as a whole. And so what we're able to do with the technology that everyone has in their pocket is to create a powerful engine for changing the way that healthcare is provided.
So David, you're the inventor. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, I was, at the time I came up with it, I was working as a postdoc in Tel Aviv University. I was working on advanced imaging systems, and I looked at the images that I had on my smartphone, and they seemed to be much better quality than the images that I captured with a scientific-grade camera. And I noticed that the big lasers you have in medical instruments today are not necessarily necessary to do the diagnosis. LEDs that are small, cheap, and just as powerful do the job just as well. And I thought, why not just take these low-cost components and low-cost sensors and put them together in a medical device that can be low-cost, small, cheap, portable, and spread to the masses and spread the technology to lots of people.
You both have excellent English. What's the background here?
So actually, we know each other since we were 13 years old. I'm the son of Israeli parents that came here in 1977 and grew up with a foot in both worlds, in Israel and the United States. And we met at summer camp
and what's your background,
years
David?
ago.
I was born in Israel. My dad actually died in the 1982 Lebanon War. My mom remarried, and we moved to the US in 1990. A couple of years later, I met Ariel, and we've been best friends ever since.
So Ariel, where is this device in use?
Well, so it's now being used in over 20 countries around the world. We've helped health providers screen over 6,000 women, and that number is growing exponentially. And that's only since May of this past year. And we have some fantastic investors that understand the potential of creating a life-saving technology that can address the billions without access to health care.
And how much does it cost?
Well, so believe it or not, so a device does what this does without the internet connection and the algorithms generally goes for between $10,000 to $15,000. We've been able to reduce the cost to less than $1,500, and for many of the organizations we work, sell it at a bulk rate. Now what that does is it makes medical technology available to all those 2.5 billion smartphones around the world that until now can do almost everything but save their lives and the lives of their loved ones.
And does it do anything besides cervical cancer?
Absolutely. So that's what's so exciting. And by the way, we have a booth at the AIPAC Village. We'd be happy to tell more about it.
Go see them in the village.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now in the United States, it's being used for sexual assault documentation and rape documentation, which is a huge problem, not only on college campuses, but across the United States. And this is a photo documentation system has been able to provide critical support. And Boston Medical Center has been using this for oral cancer in India. So the possibilities are limitless. So when you and I go to the doctor does two things. They listen to what we're complaining about, and then they look with their eyes. And based on what they see, they make an assessment. We're going to do the looking part for every diagnosis using the power of mobile phones and the power of Levitz's algorithms.
All right, to wrap it up, you guys are obviously bright and capable. You could have done anything. Why did you choose this?
I mean, what we want to do is we want to build a company, a billion-dollar company that actually has a purpose and saves millions of lives. And we thought that cervical cancer was the best way to do it.
And Ariel, why did you choose this?
Well, that's absolutely right. That is, what we believe is that we have an unbelievable opportunity where people around the world have access to technology they've never had access to before. And so this is a wonderful opportunity for a market, that is to generate a company that generates profit, as well as to save lives in the farthest reaches of the planet. And there's nothing that we would rather do as Israelis and Jews than to spread the powerful technologies out of Israel to every corner of the planet, to have people recognize that Israel is not only a technology powerhouse, but it's a technology powerhouse that can influence the most important parts of their lives.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ariel Beery and David Levitz of Mobile ODT. Thanks, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a courtesy to our speakers, flash photography is prohibited. Please turn off your cell phone and take your seats. Our program will begin in 3 minutes. Please take your seats. Our program will begin in 1 minute. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program will now begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and welcome musician first class Kenny Ray Horton, lead singer of the U.S. Navy Band, for the singing of the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Israeli singer-songwriters Avi Vaknin and Micha Bitan for the singing of Hatikva.
כל עוד בלבב פנימה נפש יהודי הומייה ולפת מזרח קדימה ציון צופיה.
עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו, התקווה בת שנות 2000, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים.
I said, it seems to me that we should really be going to Washington, and that instead of sitting here in New York and talking about these things, why don't we make a determined effort, all of us go to Washington, and that was in 1960. 45 people came to our first policy conference.
We come together today in our nation's capital.
Now, as you know, I'm leaving the UN, and I've been told by too many people that I respect that after 3 weeks in Israeli politics, I'll miss the UN.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Governor Bill Clinton.
The Vice President of the United States, Dan Quayle.
To the distinguished Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Colin Powell.
Today we are over 1,000 strong.
In Hebrew we say, AIPAC, Kol HaKavod.
I am deeply honored to be the first sitting president ever to address this conference.
Your organization has but one burning desire, one exclusive goal: to help Israel.
Your activities are essential, and I am sure the same spirit and partnership will lead us in the future.
As I look around this room at the more than 3,700 delegates, I am filled with great pride.
It's my first AIPAC conference as the Prime Minister of Israel.
And you have, I think, in AIPAC, the best grassroots organization in America, bar none.
We need you to keep up the advocacy that is keeping Israel strong and America safe.
AIPAC is extraordinarily vital to all of American foreign policy.
We are more than 5,000 strong.
I want to salute you for coming here every year to advocate for one of the most important cornerstones of American national security, and that is a strong and stable state of Israel.
U.S. support for Israel transcends party lines in Congress, again, thanks to AIPAC.
I'm told there are over 850 students here from 50 states.
I have come to understand that we share something terribly important. We share a history of fighting for justice. We share a powerful dream of peace.
AIPAC's continued support is more important now than ever before.
We are 7,500 activists strong.
What an indescribable feeling to be surrounded by so many true friends in the capital of the world's greatest democracy.
As always, AIPAC has brought together a large and public-minded group representing different parts of America.
As a man of faith, my spiritual roots have always been in Israel.
This pro-Israel movement that I serve in goes way beyond the Jewish community.
Israel is mi causa.
This is my 34th year hanging out with AIPAC.
You carry with you an extraordinary legacy of more than 6 decades of friendship between the United States and Israel.
I thank you for your friendship. I thank you for your courage. And I thank you for standing up for the one and only Jewish state. Thank you all.
We stand before you more than 13,000 strong.
The bonds of trust between Israel and America have never been stronger.
America needs a strong Israel, and Israel needs a strong America.
Good to see so many friends, all 14,000 of you.
Democrats and Republicans, all of us together.
We are unified in our commitment to preserve the state of Israel.
More than 16,000 delegates.
Let us all resolve to come together
to the more than 18,000 delegates assembled here today at the Verizon Center in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the AIPAC Policy Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AIPAC CEO Howard Kaur.
Good evening. Let me just say, wow. First of all, thank you. Thank you all for being here, 18,000 strong. This is the largest gathering ever in the history of AIPAC's policy conference. We've come together from all 50 states as Jews and Christians, African Americans and Hispanic Americans, progressives and conservatives, Democrats and Republicans, and with more than 4,000 pro-Israel student activists. We've come together as individuals with an array of perspectives and diverse backgrounds. Together, we form the fabric of our movement. And it's our common thread, the common purpose we all share, which makes our community so special. At a time when American politics can be divisive, when it's easy to be consumed by rhetoric and opinions that divide us, we are united. United in our belief in the U.S.-Israel relationship. United in our commitment to keeping this important relationship strong. So tonight, let's talk about where we are at this moment. Let's reaffirm key elements that define our shared purpose. A love for America and Israel. An understanding of the dangers threatening both nations. A strong belief in the American political system. A commitment to taking important action, and an awareness of our work's higher purpose. We are united in our love for America and Israel and the remarkable things that can be achieved by working together. Two beacons of freedom, democracy, and human rights in a world full of oppression, tyranny, and persecution. Two peoples who embrace tolerance and inclusion of all races, all religions, and peoples from all walks of life. Two nations improving our world through life-saving medical discoveries, through humanitarian aid and disaster relief, through elite entrepreneurship and world-class innovation. Americans and Israelis are united, not just in how we build our nations, but also how we protect them. That strategic partnership was on vivid display just this month. 1,700 American servicemen traveled to Israel to train with 2,000 of their Israeli counterparts. We value the alliance between the United States and Israel for all that it stands for and all that it does to better our world. And when it comes to the darker realities we face, this relationship is central to keeping Israel safe and America strong. In the Gaza Strip, Hamas has restocked its entire rocket arsenal. Residents in the Israeli city of Sderot lay awake at night, worried about rockets raining from above and terrorists emerging from tunnels below. In Lebanon, the Iranian-backed terrorist group Hezbollah has more than 150,000 rockets and missiles aimed at Israel. That's 8 missiles for every single person sitting here tonight. In Egypt, the Sinai Peninsula is a breeding ground for ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other jihadi groups, cooperating and competing to attack Israel and our other allies in the Middle East. In Jordan, the pro-Western monarchy is strained by refugees pouring out of Syria. 1.4 million refugees. 1.4 million refugees, according to the latest estimates. Tonight, Jordan's 4th largest city is a refugee camp. In Syria, the death toll is approaching 500,000, and that number continues to rise. It is as though a city the size of Miami or Atlanta or Kansas City was completely wiped out. ISIS continues its conquest across the Middle East. Tens of thousands of fighters who with each passing day are more battle-tested and dangerous. And just yesterday in Turkey, an ISIS suicide bomber detonated himself in an Istanbul shopping center, killing 6 people, including 1 Israeli and 2 dual American-Israeli citizens. Tonight, our thoughts and prayers are with the families of all the victims. And in Israel itself, 33 innocent people have been killed since October. 300 more are wounded, and 5 American families are mourning the death of loved ones. Tom Henkin, Richard Lakin, Ezra Schwartz, Tuvia Weissman, and Taylor Force, all murdered at the hands of Palestinian terrorists. And fueling all of this chaos, fueling the instability in the region today, is Iran. So let us be clear. Iran remains the greatest threat to America's interests in the Middle East and to Israel's ultimate survival. And if anyone doubts Iran's intentions about Israel, look no further than the event that transpired just 11 days ago when Iran illegally test-fired 2 more ballistic missiles linked to its nuclear program. One of those missiles, powerful enough to reach Israel, had an inscription written on its side. 1 sentence. In Hebrew letters. Israel tziricha lehimachek ma'al b'nei ha'adamah. Israel must be wiped off the face of the earth. These threats underscore the need for America and Israel to remain vigilant and to confront these challenges together. So how does that happen? And what is our role? It starts with the firm belief that we can strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship and help keep Israel secure through our role in the American political process. Today, many are asking whether that process still works. Indeed, the American political system is wrought with partisanship, with the polarization of a contentious election cycle, and with the uncertainty that comes from dramatic turnover in Congress. And yet, each of us is here because we believe in our democracy. We believe in our First Amendment rights, which allow us to petition our government, and in our ability to engage directly with those creating policy. Our involvement in the political process remains the best way to advance the U.S.-Israel alliance. And here's how we do it: by building personal relationships with decision makers from both parties in every state and every congressional district, and with all candidates for federal office. We do it by educating them on these critical issues and by urging them to take action when the interests of America and Israel are at stake. Through successes and setbacks, we maintain the ability to impact policy by directly reaching those who shape it. Now, there are those who question our bipartisan approach to political advocacy. But unless any one party controls the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, and controls them forever, bipartisanship is the only way to create stable, sustainable policy from one election to the next. And tonight, our commitment to that approach is as strong as it has ever been. Where else in today's America can you find a gathering this committed to political advocacy across party lines? Where else in today's America can you find a gathering this determined to foster relations with our country's decision makers? And where else in today's America can you find a gathering this devoted to an issue, not for commercial gains or economic interests, but for a deep commitment to a cause of such profound significance? These are the elements of extraordinary citizenship and effective advocacy. So with our pledge to advance the alliance through our political progress comes significant work. That work continues here and Tuesday on Capitol Hill. 18,000 activists, 535 congressional offices, one bipartisan voice. And we have a united message to deliver to our decision makers, a message which we believe will advance the U.S.-Israel relationship in the year ahead. First, the struggle to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran and to deter Iranian aggression in the Middle East is far from over. We were disappointed by the outcome of the vote last September on the Iran nuclear deal. But we have every reason to be proud of our work, to have fought the right fight, and to have raised the concerns that continue to this day. And to those of you who stood up and joined us in this important work, we thank you. We thank you. Now, we must continue to move forward to ensure the world's most dangerous regime never acquires the world's most dangerous weapons. Yes, Iran has taken steps to limit its nuclear program in the near term. It has disconnected centrifuges, shipped out enriched uranium, curtailed its plutonium production. Yet it remains on a path to nuclear weapons capability as restrictions are gradually lifted. its nuclear program is not dismantled. It's been delayed. And that's the best case. And that's even if Iran abides by the deal. Iran's continued violations of international agreements, its missile tests, its arming of terrorists, its deployment of Revolutionary Guard around the region, all signal that its regional aggression continues unabated. And now it's fueled by the lifting of economic sanctions and by over $100 billion in newly unfrozen assets. On Tuesday, we will ask Congress to pass legislation that reaffirms America's resolve to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon, to impose consequences for cheating, and to answer regional aggression with a strong response. Next, we must continue to work for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Yes, it might be hard to imagine a peace agreement amid the current chaos, but we cannot and we will not lose sight of that vision of peace. 2 states for 2 peoples, a Jewish state of Israel living in peace and security alongside a demilitarized Palestinian state. On Tuesday, we will remind Congress that our best hope for peace comes through direct negotiations between the parties themselves. And that peace is undermined when outside parties, such as the United Nations, the International Criminal Court, or any other international body, seeks to impose their own solution. And that's why we are asking Congress to stand firm and to encourage and support direct talks. And if an anti-Israel resolution is brought before the United Nations Security Council, the United States must be clear. We will veto. And our final message. America must reaffirm its support for Israel with the resources needed to defend herself by herself this year and for years to come. Tonight we ask, given the threats facing Israel at this hour, does she have all the resources needed to protect her citizens from the rockets of Hamas and the missiles of Hezbollah? Can she fully finance the programs needed to protect her people from Iranian missiles that could carry nuclear warheads? Is she fully equipped with what's needed to keep families in Sderot safe from terror tunnels? Is she able to protect our shared interests in a volatile region? Israel has answered those questions and determined that she needs more American help. So together, starting on Tuesday, we must do everything in our power to ensure that the answer is yes. Yes, America is here to help. Yes, America will provide additional resources. And yes, America will always stand with our ally, Israel. As we consider the work that lies ahead, it is critical to remember all that's at stake. Sometimes a small event speaks to a larger truth. February 20th, 2016, just 1 month ago today. It wasn't a terribly significant news day. No new wars broke out. No new medical breakthroughs were announced. No earthquakes rocked the planet that day. But quietly, one man's life came to an end. One man whose passing should mark that day as significant for everyone assembled here tonight. That day marked the passing of the last surviving prisoner of the Treblinka concentration camp, Sam Willenberg. Sam was no more than 19 years old when he was rounded up and taken to the camp. He was the only one from his rail car who was not sent to the gas chambers. Sam rose up in the Treblinka revolt, one of the few who escaped the camp. He returned home to Warsaw. He joined the resistance. He fought. He stood his ground. He survived. And as a survivor, he often said, I live two lives. One is here, and the other is what happened there. Sam Willenberg couldn't unsee what happened there. But it's what he did see in the years after. What he saw in his second life that is the story not only of his survival, but of a people's survival. The most significant moment in Willenberg's life was not the hell of Treblinka. It was his immigration to the newly reborn state of Israel. For the last 66 years, Sam lived as a proud Jew. He raised a family, he worked, he even became a successful sculptor. And he saw something he never could have imagined in the darkness of his youth. He saw a people emerge from thousands of years of powerlessness to the birth of Israel, a nation of faith and freedom, a beacon of hope. So you're asking yourself, why do I share this story with you tonight? Sam Willenberg's passing represents a moment in history that requires all of our attention. A moment for which we bear a special responsibility. You see, in a very brief period of time, all of those who survived the Holocaust will pass from this earth. And then with that passage, we will also lose the direct link. No longer will anyone be able to say of the Holocaust, yes, it happened, and it happened to me. We cannot feel the absence of Sam Willenberg the way his family does. But his passing tells us everything about our mission and its meaning. You see, we in this arena, we are the bridge generation. We're the last to know the survivors and the first that will carry their stories to those without memory of the Holocaust. We are the last generation to know Israel's founders, those who fought for the birth of the state of Israel after 2,000 years. And we will be the first to explain their heroism to those that weren't there. We are the last generation to remember the miraculous birth of a democracy. And we are the first that will be tasked with keeping those memories alive. How we handle this moment how we act as the stewards of memory, that is the test of our time. Will we honor that past by working to protect the now strong but still fragile state of Israel? Will we honor the past by working to safeguard a country that stands with America, to protect the values we both hold so dear? Tonight, among us are many survivors of the Holocaust. Speak with them. I think you will find that they take nothing for granted, especially not freedom, America, or Israel. They know what is important and what distracts. And you'll likely not find much patience for partisan squabbling or bickering over particular issues. They know how lucky we are. Let us say to those survivors now, let us say to those survivors now, while we still have the chance, that we will never, not ever, rest in our efforts to keep America strong and Israel safe. That is why we are here. That is our pledge. That is our purpose. And that is our promise. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Mr. Ethan.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is my great honor on behalf of the residents of Washington, D.C., to welcome you to your nation's capital. Be proud. Thank you. Be proud of your nation's capital. We're growing, we're investing in the things important to our city, and we're representing our country around the world. This conference embodies so much that is great about the city of Washington. It is so wonderful to see Americans from all 50 states of our union and Washington, D.C., what we hope to be the 51st state of our union. While you're here, we ask for your support, too, for full democracy and statehood for the residents of your nation's capital. We know that you are 18,000 strong, Democrats, Republicans, people from all backgrounds and beliefs gathered here to support the very important relationship between the United States and Israel. Your number is so great that when I was speaking to you last year, it was from the convention center. And this year, you've moved to the arena. What you will do here this week when you go and talk to your representatives on the Congress is so central to our democracy. You've come here to learn, you've come here to engage, and of course, you've come here to persuade and hold those who represent you accountable. You will discuss issues that are important to America's foreign policy, and of course, issues that are important to our leadership in the world. I know that you will compel all the members of Congress to take hard issues head on and deal with them. to work through gridlock and do the things that are best for our country, and to do everything in their power to keep our nations safe and strong. And I am proud to be here on behalf of all of the people who call D.C. home to support and welcome you to your nation's capital. Now, I know you have a lot of work to do while you're here, but I hope you'll take a chance to see our neighborhoods, to visit our monuments and memorials, and to talk to Washingtonians about life here in our city. Good luck and Godspeed. Thank you.
Good evening, AIPAC. We are here tonight as religious leaders representing a wide spectrum of beliefs and backgrounds. We come together tonight because we share a love for America and Israel. And we share a belief in the importance of the friendship between these two great nations.
During the conference, there will be speakers that each of us appreciate and agree with. But there will also be speakers that each of us disagree with, sometimes vehemently.
They respect us enough to take the time to appear in person to explain how they see the U.S.-Israel relationship. In turn, they deserve our respect. As one would respect a guest in one's own home.
To us, this is sacred work. So it's as unthinkable for anyone to disrupt a speaker here as it would be for someone to disrupt a sermon in one of our synagogues or our churches.
We as faith leaders are asking that you please take the high road, the meaningful road, that you do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And that you help us make this policy conference a time of civil discourse.
And so, we ask that we all work together to make this conference representative of our highest ideals as a bipartisan, multiracial, cross-political spectrum movement. Thank you all.
This program helps kids and makes me feel happy and proud of myself.
כל התוכנית הזו בביטחון העצמי בנגינה, בלהבין את הכלי שלי. כשקיבלתי את הכינור שלי, הרגשתי שכאילו אני יכולה להיות בגג העולם.
Sulamot is an orchestral program for children at risk. It's an initiative of the Israel Philharmonic and Tel Aviv University. We have 1,200 children in the program playing in 18 orchestras.
They come from very difficult environment. They cope with difficult life and life condition. And the interesting thing is to see that as more they play, the rate of aggression reduces and the rate of happiness increase.
Everybody gets a chance to play for a minimum of 3 years. We don't give up on anyone.
Musical education for children is proved to be very good for the development of the mind. This music program can help some of them to forget the problems at home, takes them to another level of being.
יש פה אוכלוסייה מאוד מאוד מגוונת שמשקפת מאוד את החברה הישראלית. יש פה ערבים, יהודים, נוצרים, עדי יהובה, עולים חדשים, עולים ותיקים, מדברים עברית, לא יודעים אף מילה בעברית, הכל.
Music for me is love and happiness.
מוזיקה בשבילי זה פשוט דבר מדהים שיכול ללמד אותי הרבה על עצמי. אני אוהבת את הכלי כי לפעמים אני שומעת מוזיקה. זה מרגש אותי הכלי. זה שאני לומד עוזר למשפחה שלי, זה נותן להם כבוד.
As a therapist, I can see the benefit of music as a tool for helping children change. I believe it can create better life, better society.
Children love music, and music loves children too. And when you put together children and music, only good things can happen. Grisel was born without eyes. She was abandoned. She had many social problems.
But being on stage makes me feel happy and proud of myself. Now I know that no matter what you are, you can do whatever you want. There's a time for us, someday a time for us, time together with time to swear, time to learn, time to care, someday
The world of sports is what brought me into understanding the globe. The 1972 Olympics was a pivotal moment for me. I remember vividly. We watched TV in the living room, and as a young boy, I did not understand why anyone would want to create violence during a time countries are coming together to build bridges of peace. And so Israel was always a concern to me growing up. Being the youngest of 7 boys, I'm naturally someone that supports the underdog, the team that needs to fight a little bit harder to be successful. Yeah, I think it served me well as I became involved with AIPAC and more engaged in this important relationship between the U.S. and Israel. I grew up in Victorville, east of Los Angeles, which is where more of the minority of families live, the African-American families and Latino families. I did not go to college. As soon as I graduated from high school, I immediately needed to get a job to pay rent. I began my banking career 20 years ago as a bank teller, and last year I received a terrific offer from the most recognized brand in the world.
I'm with Coca-Cola, but I'm on the National Council of AIPAC.
I applaud AIPAC for understanding that the Latino community is going to play a more important role in American lives. Here in California, we have the largest Latino population in the country. We also have the largest Latino congressional delegation. So Latinos are playing a more important role at all levels of government, including Washington, D.C. I've made it my mission to try to engage and educate my community to make sure that this issue of the U.S.-Israel partnership is one of our priorities. Israel to experience what's happening over there. So when I go to Washington, D.C., it's not just for Coca-Cola. I also make sure to put in some AIPAC time and build a stronger partnership between the U.S. and Israel to make sure that I'm talking about the issues that are facing our communities, the issues that are facing Americans.
When they're chanting death to America and death to Israel, they don't say death to America, but not Latinos. We are American.
I'm very proud of the small role I played against that Iran nuclear deal by reaching out to my friends who are members of Congress. These individuals voted no because they had the courage to stand up for what they thought was right for America.
I'm thanking you for your leadership.
I do hear from folks within our community say, why should Israel be a priority for my community? And my response to them is, if we as Latinos are going to become leaders in America, we must engage on this issue. As a National Council member, as a club member for AIPAC, I'm continuing to try to build a bridge, be a puente for our two communities, and with AIPAC, build a stronger partnership between the U.S. and Israel.
Ladies and gentlemen, AIPAC activist Peter Villegas. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Democratic leader of the South Carolina House of Representatives, Todd Rutherford, former member of the South Carolina House of Representatives, Bakari Sellers, and Mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, Stephen Benjamin.
In 2013, as a member of the South Carolina State House, I helped sponsor legislation divesting our state's pension funds from companies doing business with Iran. Making us one of the first states to divest from Iran's energy sector. That decision has meant millions of dollars of investment funds kept out of the hands of the people behind Iran's nuclear program.
As the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, I led an effort to divest my city's pension funds from Iran, and later to invest in Israel bonds. These measures put our city on record that we support our partnership with Israel and that we care about the direction of the Middle East.
Last year, South Carolina became the first state in the nation to sign a bill into law banning efforts to divest from Israel. As a Democratic leader of the South Carolina State House, I am proud to say that if you want to do business with us, you cannot refuse to do business with the state of Israel.
And none of this happened by accident. For each of us, our connection to AIPAC and the pro-Israel community is both professional and personal. In 2011, I took my first trip to Israel with AIPAC's Education Foundation as a part of a mission for African American leaders. But my work with AIPAC started long before that. I've been involved with AIPAC since 2004, and I'm very proud to say that this is my 13th policy conference. I would have not gotten involved in this issue if it weren't for AIPAC's work on campuses, and specifically our efforts to reach out to the student government presidents. And today I'm proud to have watched the student program grow and amazed to see the thousands of students here this year.
When AIPAC invited me to Israel, I saw a nation committed to the freedom of democracy and the freedom of religion. I returned to South Carolina determined to become involved in this movement and support Israel not only in words, but in deeds. I believe my role within AIPAC is to be both a leader and a mentor. I traveled back to Israel for a second time in 2014 to help lead another AIPAC outreach mission.
I tell every person I speak to, there is nothing like being in Israel. It was this man right here who introduced me to AIPAC. I took my first trip to Israel with AIPAC's Education Foundation. I found a country full of hope and optimism, grounded in family and tradition. I traveled back to Israel in 2014. This time I helped lead an official delegation of South Carolina state legislators.
But you see, our state has had a very difficult year. Last June, a man walked into a church in Charleston and killed 9 people for no other reason than their faith and the color of their skin. It was an act of terrorism, plain and simple. The 3 of us lost a close friend and a colleague that day, and the hatred we saw was no different than that faced by the people of Israel.
And then came the worst flood in 1,000 years. 12 trillion gallons of water fell from the sky. Lives were lost, businesses and homes were destroyed. One of the hardest hit neighborhoods in our city was also one of the poorest neighborhoods. When I visited that community, I found a remarkably organized relief effort. As I walked through the camp of volunteers, I heard something completely unexpected. I heard Hebrew. Israel, an Israeli humanitarian relief organization, has sent a team to South Carolina to help with the cleanup efforts. It was in that moment I knew that we were not alone.
The three of us and the people of our state have stood with Israel. And when it mattered most, Israel stood with us. None of us were surprised that Israel had come to help. It's what friends do. Israel is and will continue to be America's greatest ally.
And so we are very proud to join you today as proud members of this pro-Israel community.
Thankful for the friendship. Thankful for the friendship between America and Israel.
And thankful to be leaders in this incredible organization. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AIPAC activist Pastor Chris Edmonds.
My story begins with an old diary, a weathered, fragile book. The diary belonged to a young man from Tennessee fighting for his country on a continent near the edge of collapse. Its owner, my father, passed away years earlier. Since then, the diary remained tucked away with other mementos from his service in World War II. He had served with distinction. Master Sergeant Roddy Edmonds of the 106th Infantry was captured in the Battle of the Bulge and spent 100 days in a harsh German POW camp toward the end of the war. This was the story our family knew, the totality of his service. Service he never talked about. While reading Dad's diary one evening, many years after his passing, his words touched my heart. In it, Dad wrote, "A lot of things I'm not going to write because they're not exactly nice to talk about. I know God was with us, and He answered our prayers. I learned men even better than before. Some were good, some were bad, some were better, some were worse." The diary inspired me to look further into Dad's service and to uncover the true story of his time as a prisoner of war. Dad was the highest-ranking American soldier in Stalag 9A, a POW camp near Ziegenhain, Germany. It was near the end of the war, late January 1945. The Nazis had strict anti-Jew policies in the POW camps, segregating Jewish POWs from non-Jews, sending them to certain death in labor camps. American Jewish soldiers were told if they fell into enemy hands to destroy their dog tags and any mention of their Jewish identity. Late one evening, German officers ordered that only Jewish soldiers were to report outside for the next morning's roll call. Without hesitation, my dad turned to his men and said, "We're not doing that. Tomorrow, we all fall out." It was bitterly cold that morning, January 27, 1945. As the Nazi commander approached, he couldn't believe his eyes. All of the Americans, more than 1,200 soldiers, were lined up in sharp formation. The German major turned to my father, and he angrily said, "They cannot all be Jews." To which my father declared, "We are all Jews here." The Nazi officer lunged forward and pressed his pistol hard into my dad's head. "One last chance, Sergeant. You will order the Jewish prisoners to step forward, or I will shoot you right now." By this time, Dad had seen untold horrors. Brutal battle, a death march, bombing while imprisoned in a boxcar, 40 days of starvation, being beaten, stripped of his dignity, humiliated. Just 2 days earlier, witnessing a savage execution and being told the same would happen to him and all who disobeyed Nazi orders. Yet he stood strong, fearless, resolute. My dad said quietly, "If you shoot me, you will have to kill all of us, because we know who you are, and you'll be tried for war crimes when we win this war, and you will pay." The Nazi blanched. Suddenly and without warning, he lowered his gun and walked away. Dad saved the lives of nearly 200 Jewish soldiers that day. Earlier this year, Israel's Holocaust Museum and Yad Vashem and the nation of Israel honored my father as one of the righteous among the nations. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. As you know, righteous among the nations is the highest honor given to non-Jews who rescued their lives to protect Jews during the Holocaust. The ceremony was hosted by Ambassador Dermer and attended by President Obama. It was held at the Israeli Embassy here in Washington on January 27, 2016, exactly 71 years to the day after that fateful morning in the POW camp. My dad is only the 5th American and the first U.S. serviceman to receive the award. And the first recognized for protecting American Jews. Now, I think he deserves the Congressional Medal of Honor. How about you? Send a letter to your congressman. I'm proud of my dad, proud of the heroic decisions he made, and the righteous life he led. I'm so blessed to have learned his story, but more blessed to have met some of the men and the families he saved. Skip Friedman of Ohio, Paul Stern of Virginia, Hank Friedman of Georgia. And joining us today are Lester Tanner of New York and Sonny Fox of California. These men, their children, grandchildren, and even great-grandchildren, they are my dad's legacy. As an AIPAC activist, I see my work with AIPAC as a vital part of continuing my dad's legacy. I'm blessed to have AIPAC members and all of you as family. We're a family committed to a strong America and a safe and secure homeland for the Jewish people, something I know Dad would be thrilled about. Thrilled because we fight for what is good and stand for what is right. Thank you, AIPAC, for letting me share Dad's story and for giving me a voice within the pro-Israel community. May God richly bless each of you, the state of Israel, and the United States of America. God bless you. Thank you.
Before starting this program, I didn't know anything really about food, so everything in this program about the fish farming was exciting to me.
As part of crop farming, I normally take care of the vegetable gardens, a lot of watering and weeding.
When I heard that they were introducing goats, I asked the teacher one day, "What are goats?" I think it's a very good thing that this program is funded by Israel.
This is part of the education for sustainable development.
Mashav is the government program for International Development Corporation and Israeli aid in the developing world. Ultimately, Mashav is the Israeli version of US aid. We approach the government of Kenya, we sit with the government of Kenya, and we try to analyze together the main challenges and where we can assist Kenyans to meet those challenges.
Instead of getting grants in terms of money, Israel is the only country which gives grants in technical support, in knowledge-based kind of support, and that is how Kenyans benefit.
After independence, Africans had a very negative attitude towards agriculture, and this was as a result of Africans being forced to work in the white farms during the colonial period. Most of the young people in this country opted to move away from agriculture and concentrate in education so that they can be able to get white-collar jobs, and that has had a direct effect of less food in the country. Israel has done a lot of good by introducing these programs to schools in Kenya. It does change the mindset of the young learners that learning is not only meant for passing exams.
In science, we learn about the browsers and the grazers. The student gets to see what is in the textbook.
That is fish farming. They can be able to tell that fish comes from the water, and this is how fish is reared. The school has also started vegetable gardening. And then the school has also come up with goat keeping.
Our goal is to promote food security because in Kenya we have a lot of drought. The needy families might not have enough food.
When I plant something, I know that I'm planting for the greater of good.
If a child realizes that by planting something in the ground, something big will come out of it for him, for his benefit, for his family's benefit, then we know that we succeeded.
I think it's important to have countries that are friends because they help each other to develop, and that is also part of sustainable development.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of East and Central Africa Head Teachers Association, Joseph Karuga.
Thank you so much. At our school, we have a motto, to the heights by hard work. It is marvelous to join the people of AIPAC, whose hard work helps Israel to empower so many people to their heights. The students were very excited when I told them I was going to travel to Washington, D.C., and they wanted to say hello. From them and me, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Democratic strategist Ann Lewis.
I believe that women's rights are human rights. I believe that every child is entitled to a future where they can make the most of their God-given talents. I measure governments by whether or not they allow free elections, free speech, a chance for all citizens to succeed. Those are the standards by which I measure my own government, and those are the standards by which I measure Israel. And that is why I stand here today, proudly pro-Israel and proud to be a member of AIPAC. I've spent a lifetime in politics and in progressive organizations. I've tried to use my abilities and my rights as a citizen to empower women, to make a difference for people who deserve a better chance. And I support Israel for all the reasons that I am a progressive. Remember when America was debating whether gay men and women could serve openly in the military? And yet in Israel, gay men and women had been serving their country openly for years. As progressives, we talk about the need to value our environment. Well, Israel is the world's leader in recycling water, a technology it shares with states like California and Texas and the rest of the world. The catch is that most Americans don't know this side of Israel, and that's where AIPAC comes in. And that's why, for the last 6 years, I have worked with AIPAC to bring democratic and progressive women leaders to Israel. The women I travel with are opinion leaders, influencers, political and issue activists, women who have run political campaigns or plan to run for office themselves. I believe that we need more women's voices in our pro-Israel dialogue. And to get them involved, we need to give them the information that matters to them. I know that we have the facts on our side. We need to do a better job of sharing them. And why do I choose AIPAC as my partner in this work? Because AIPAC works for a safe and secure Israel. And a secure Israel is one that can pursue peace with its neighbors. AIPAC helps make it possible for Israel to be that one place in the Middle East where LGBTQ people don't have to be afraid of their lives. That one place in the Middle East where we can take for granted that girls will go to school and women are actually able to use their education. That one place in the Middle East that protects the holy sites of every religion. AIPAC helps ensure that Israel's safety and security will continue. And so long as it does, those rights, the progressive ideals that I hold dear, will be safe. I've been asked why I feel such a deep connection, personal connection, with Israel and the idea of a Jewish state. Well, before I became Ann Lewis, my name was Anne Frank. Sharing that name has moved me throughout my life. Think how two Jewish girls named Anne Frank, born less than 10 years apart, could lead such different lives, and why. Growing up, I came to understand two very important lessons. I understood that government was important, that what leaders did made a difference, even the difference between life and death. And I understood how important it was that there was finally a country where that other Anne Frank could have gone. The work we do at AIPAC strengthens our democracy, reaffirms our values, and ensures a safer future for all our children. When we reach out and strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship, we're making a difference in the world. Thank you.
The trip in Jerusalem was very eye-opening. Here we are, you've heard about Israel your whole life, and you're experiencing it, and you're not really quite sure what to expect. And then you roll into Jerusalem, and the world starts to unfold. So it was a remarkable moment.
It's important to be here in Israel to see for ourselves what you may read about in the newspaper, what you might see on a map.
I've never been to Israel. I thought I needed to come here and be on the ground and hear from as many folks here as I possibly can to kind of fill in the gaps of my own knowledge base.
The historical things that we saw literally brought goosebumps. To be able to walk on the same street as Jesus Christ walked. The 2,000 years in between his being here and now just kind of melted away. Those impressions will stay with me forever.
To meet with the president of Israel, it's something that I can tell my constituents, that I listen to the discussions and that I'm very much aware of my responsibility as a member of Congress.
It's something else to be able to say that we met with young officers, talking to them about their daily lives, that we met with folks in the community that are under the daily stress of potential rocket attacks, and having a lot better understanding and really empathy for some of the challenges that are going on in this part of the world.
We got to see how Israel is the home of many startup companies. It's remarkable. I'm still in awe of the country and its people.
The aha moment for me was the Holocaust Museum. And it was actually placing faces, personalities, and biographies in the context of what happened. That was just very touching to me. I was in tears going through that whole experience.
I'm proud to be an Israel supporter. The trip only strengthened that. Coming back to the U.S. and being able to speak out publicly about why that's important as Americans, and why it's in America's interest that we support Israel.
The members of Congress that we had the opportunity to spend the several days with in Israel, we still talk about it. It's definitely impacted, from what I've seen, all of our lives and how we even interact on a daily basis. And it's memories that we'll never forget. That's enough reason in itself for us to have a bipartisan approach in protecting one of our greatest allies.
Water is everything. The U.S. government estimates that by the year 2025, 40 of our 50 U.S. states will be experiencing some form of water scarcity. Already today, we have 8 states in severe drought and several others that are in early drought stages.
We are at the depth of the worst drought in California history. It's never been hotter nor drier than it's been in these past 4 years. We have a number of the same challenges that Israel has worked on with regard to water. So Governor Brown and Prime Minister Netanyahu signed a memorandum of understanding between California and Israel. California's agricultural economy measures about $70 billion of economic activity each year. So we're extraordinarily sensitive to drought and how that affects jobs and planning for future crops in our state.
You have to show the people here in California it is feasible to achieve the same crops, the same quality with much less water.
At over 17,000 acres, Conaway Ranch is a substantial provider of farm products to feed the people of California and around the world.
Lack of water has caused many farms to put acres into fallow. They're barely keeping some of the permanent crop trees alive, not just producing, but just keeping them alive. It's a huge implication not only on the farmer, but the consumer.
My family and our partners, we feel really privileged to be partnering with the experts at Ben Gurion University and our friends at Lumberg Farms and Netafim.
Here in California, at the Conaway Ranch, I've been consulting the owners, trying to find adequate ways to improve and elevate water use efficiency. They grow rice known to consume a lot of water, and since in California they face water scarcity, it is the right thing to do, is to look for more efficient way to grow rice having the same productivity.
Netafim is an irrigation manufacturer that started back in 1965, originally in Israel. We decided to create this partnership to do a 42-acre plot where we are using subsurface drip irrigation rather than flood irrigation to see if we can grow more rice with less water.
And our hope is that we find that it's very effective and that it can be used not just here at our ranch, but throughout California, the United States, and around the world.
One of the good things coming out of all the water woes of the day is the fact that lots of really smart, forward-looking entrepreneurial philanthropists are thinking about how they can help fix the problem.
My nickname is a Rain Man. I would say that I'm an educator, that through the idea of teaching water issues and conservation, I became a specialist in rain harvesting. I developed this system that in some schools can actually save during the winter about 90% of the school water consumption during the winter, during the rainy season, and became a fantastic educational tool for the kids to really understand better about water, rain, environment, and global issues. So the idea was, first of all, we collect all the water we possibly could as fast as we could during the rain, because rain events come, you have one day or a few hours of rain, you want to collect any possible drop you could collect. And then you let the dirt or the suspended material to settle down, you flush it out from the special design tanks that nobody else in the world thought about before. And once you do that, you can get clean water enough without any further filtration to flush the toilets. Nobody else make those settling tanks but Israel. When I contacted by the UC San Diego Reddy School of Management, I was glad to collaborate with them and disseminate the idea that I developed in Israel. During the winter, we'll install 3 schools in the city of San Diego in exact same model that we have here. And the idea is that San Diego will be the first city in America to be using rainwater to flush toilets for indoor use, which is almost a revolutionary idea.
Between education, clean technology, the use of desalination in California, hopefully this relationship between Israel and California will be strengthened.
In looking at solutions for its problems, California is casting a wide net. But what it realizes is that the Israel experience offers lots of guidance for them, everything from how people should be living in their homes to how agriculture could be reformed to how they could change the school curriculum. And they look to Israel for ideas and solutions.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President, CEO, and owner of Conaway Ranch, Kyriakos Sekopoulos.
Thank you. I am honored to be here today. I feel close to AIPAC, even though this is my first policy conference. You see, my father was dear friends with AIPAC board member Mort Friedman, whose memory I know continues to be a comfort to his family and an inspiration to our community in Sacramento, California, and to all those here today who remember his leadership. For me and my family, Israel has always been a very special place, not only as the land of the Bible, but as the home of my beloved Aunt Maria, who lives in Jerusalem near the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So you can imagine that it was even more meaningful for us to be able to look to experts in Israel, like Dr. Ilan Adar. Ilan, thank you for your guidance and consultation as we searched for ways to cope with California's water crisis. The devastating effects of drought aren't going away anytime soon. And that is why Israel's experience and Israel's friendship matters. That's also why initiatives like the Strategic Partnership Act, which you all worked with Congress to pass last year, and by unanimous vote, I might add, provide such an important way to help step up cooperation between America and Israel in critical areas like water. So to you all as well, I say thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AIPAC President Lillian Pincus.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden.
I am incredibly honored that my first duty as AIPAC president is to welcome tonight's very special guest to the AIPAC stage. Mr. Vice President, thank you for being with us here tonight. Most importantly, thank you for being a champion of the U.S.-Israel relationship. Not only do you know that the alliance between these two great democracies is in America's national interest, but you also have formed your own personal affinity for the Jewish state, a love for Israel which you have shared with your children, with Hunter, Ashley, and Bo of blessed memory. We thank you. We welcome you this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden. Thank you. All yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam President, thank you, William, for that introduction. And the CEO, past, present, and future, Howard Core, he was moving folks through the photo line. And the couple, he was acting like he's moving me too quickly. And I said, don't worry, he's been giving me orders for years and years. And Board Chairman Bob Cohen. It's wonderful to be back with so many friends. And if I begin by saying, please excuse my back, I apologize. But my Lord, what the hell is going to be the next venue? 18,700 people. Whoa! I had to clap for you guys. I thought the reason for the crowd is, after the Academy Awards, a lot of you thought I was bringing along Lady Gaga with me. But the truth of the matter is, AIPAC has been moving to bigger venues because you're growing. You're growing. More than 18,700 people here in Washington. I'm told, at least from observation it appears as well, the largest number ever. I was trying to remember because I was being asked backstage whether or not how big the first AIPAC convention, AIPAC national meeting I attended was. It may have been 300 or 400 people. I don't know. Maybe it's just that I'm getting too old and senile, but it sure wasn't this big. Barbie may know how many were back then, but look, you're all united. We're all united by our unyielding, and I mean it literally, unyielding commitment to the survival, security, and success of the Jewish state of Israel. But what impresses me most is what I know those of you who've been with AIPAC a long while understand is the lifeblood and the certainty and security. And that is the more than 4,000 young people you have here. Would all the young people who are here stand up if it's your first? I want to see you. It's really, really, really important. From teenagers to college kids making an early and enduring promise. I want to thank you for being here. When we talk about the relationship between our two great nations and how to deepen it, it's a generational issue. generation after generation, is the building block upon which we guarantee the success of our endeavor. I want to start tonight by offering my deepest condolences to all the victims wounded by the terrorist bombing yesterday in Istanbul, so many of whom were Israeli citizens. We also know that one of those killed in the blast was an Israeli and 2 more were Israeli Americans. Our hearts go out to the families. It's so easy to use that phrase. It almost sounds like it's been used so often, it almost sounds like it's meaningless. But we all know. We all know. It's a tremendous void that the loss of those innocent victims leaves in entire communities, entire families. The United States of America stands with our allies, Israel and Turkey, in that fight against terrorism, against the thugs and the cowards who murder innocents and seek to impose their will through fear and intimidation. I was talking with Howard. We were talking about how much has changed. In one sense, Israel is so much stronger. In another sense, it was so much less complicated when I started as a 29-year-old kid. But the United States has never and will never lose our resolve. Israel will never waver. Terrorists cannot and will not, I promise you, prevail. Attacks such as the one that has come to dominate today's news. But at last year's conference, there was only one topic on everyone's mind when I got to speak to you all: the possibility of a nuclear deal with Iran. The stakes for the United States and our partners were immense. For Israel, it's existential. Predictions about what might happen if we reached a deal or failed to reach a deal were rampant. But this year, we're no longer dealing with hypotheticals. There's a real, concrete report. So I'd like to update you on what, from my perspective, we've accomplished. As of today, more than 2/3 of Iran's centrifuges have been removed. More than 98% of the stockpile of enriched uranium, enough for 6 nuclear bombs, has been shipped out of the country. And the core of a plutonium reactor at Iraq has been removed, filled with cement so it can no longer be used to produce plutonium bombs. And unprecedented inspections are happening at all of Iran's nuclear facilities, providing more visibility into Iran's program than ever. To put it simply, Iran is much, much further away from obtaining a nuclear weapon than they were a year ago. And whatever your feelings were about the deal, I hope you're happy about this as I am, that they are further and further removed from the possibility. Removing the threat of a nuclear-armed Iran peacefully through diplomacy is critical progress in the region otherwise facing too much instability and too little opportunity. The Chief of Staff of the Israeli Defense Force recently acknowledged that the nuclear agreement reduces the immediate Iranian threat to Israel because, and I quote, "it rolls back Iran's nuclear capability and deepens the monitoring capabilities." It was his assessment, not ours, the IDF's assessment. He also said that he believes, quote, "Iran will make a great effort to fulfill their side of the bargain." I agree, for a simple reason. The incentives are aligned for Iran to uphold its part of the deal. And we're going to make sure they do. We're watching Tehran like a hawk. Under this agreement, Iran will never be allowed to pursue nuclear weapons. Never, never, never. But let me assure you that what we said all along still holds. If Iran violates the deal, The United States will act. The United States will act. Our commitment is unambiguous. And it'll be impossible for the next president not to honor it. Neither are we giving Iran any slack in the non-nuclear threats they continue to stir up. Their support for terrorism and violent proxies, their violation of human rights, their ballistic missile activities. Those sanctions remain in place, and we're enforcing them vigorously. In fact, the day the nuclear deal came into effect in January, we imposed 11 new sanctions on 11 individuals and entities involved in the Iranian ballistic missile program. We have serious sanctions against Hezbollah, targeting more than 100 individuals and entities that fund Hezbollah's terrorist and military capabilities, including money launderers and financiers. And we need the Senate to finally confirm Adam Zubin as our new Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. So he's the best we've ever had, so that we can benefit from his experience in overseeing our rigorous sanction enforcement and holding Iran accountable. We have the authorities we need to counter Iran's destabilizing activities, and we're not afraid to use them. And we're working with a community of regional partners to check Iran's influence, not just Israel. This was a key subject in my recent trip to the Middle East, the UAE, Israel, Jordan. MBZ talked more about the need for us to unitedly join in making sure that Iran's activities are thwarted. In Israel, I met with my good friend, Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Rivlin in Jerusalem. As a matter of fact, our ambassador, I see him sitting right out there. How you doing, Mr. Ambassador? Great to see you. He was in the meetings as well. He and I have something in common. We both love Israel, and we speak our mind, and we're friends. I spent time in Tel Aviv as well with one of the finest men in the world, and that's not hyperbole. In my opinion, he's one of the finest men I've ever known, President Perez. But as all of you know, my visit did not occur at a peaceful time for Israel. On the night I arrived, a Palestinian terrorist stabbed a dozen people, innocent victims enjoying an evening on the Jaffa boardwalk. An American hero, a veteran of the Army who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, was murdered. It took place about a mile from where I was meeting with President Perez at his center devoted for peace. While we were speaking, we could hear the sirens. And an hour later, I found out that my wife, daughter-in-law, and my two youngest grandchildren were even closer. They were having dinner on the beach, I'm told, less than a half a mile away. Folks, the conditions under which the Israeli people live, the sense of vulnerability, the constant fear of attack is real. It is not imagined, it's real. And the people of Israel have lived under siege since the beginning. They built a nation in defiance of relentless threats from their neighbors. They sustained that nation in the face of rocket attacks, terrorist tunnels, and now this unconscionable spat of stabbings. Israel. And if you didn't know me, you might think I'm making it up, but Israel is a nation of uncommon courage. But it shouldn't have to be this way. We cannot become inured to such violence. That's why, as the ambassador will tell you when I was there, I condemn the attacks, not just the ones that happened while I was there, all of them. And I condemn the failure to condemn those atrocious acts of violence. No leader has a right to tolerate terrorism. And as Ron Dermer knows, That's exactly what I said to President Abbas when I met him in Ramallah. No matter what legitimate disagreements the Palestinian people may have with Israel, there is no excuse for killing innocents or remaining silent in the face of terrorism. And I made it clear, I'll be honest with you. After extensive meetings with leaders on all sides, including the different parties within Israel, I must tell you straight up, I didn't walk away encouraged. The current prospects for peace are not heartening. In my view, after doing this for over 42 years, there is no political will among Israelis or Palestinians to move forward at this moment with serious negotiations. And that's incredibly disappointing, because the only way, in my view, to guarantee Israelis' future and security, its identity as a Jewish and democratic state, is with a two-state solution. That remains my view. It's the only way as well to ensure the dignity and self-determination that the Palestinian people deserve as well. That's not me tilting at ideological windmills. I think it's a clear-eyed political and democratic and demographic reality. I know, not as well as the Israelis know, but I know it's hard to take a risk for peace. And because I'm Irish, I understand old hatreds die slowly. I mean this sincerely. I've been involved in the Northern Ireland situation as well. The great Irish author James Joyce said, and I quote, "History is a nightmare from which I am constantly trying to awake." History is a nightmare from which I am trying to awake. But I also think of Theodore Herzl, his famous quote that was so consequential for Israelis, for the founding of Israel. He said, "If you will it, it is no dream. If you will it, it is no dream." I need not tell anyone in this audience that dreams in Israel have never been impossible. Were they impossible, there would be no Israel. Because there exists within the Jewish community an iron will. So right now, I don't have the answer, but I know we have to work on renewing that will for peace. We must remind and mend the constituencies among both the Israelis and Palestinians for creating a fundamentally different future. A future where the grievances of the past are not visited upon future generations. And that means the terrorist attacks must stop. The rhetoric that incites violence against innocents, against mothers, babies, pregnant women, grandfathers, it must stop. And acts of retribution and revenge must stop. There's another line from an Irish poet named Yeats, and I know for 500 years it's affected Ireland. He said, "Too much of suffering makes a stone of the heart." Too much of suffering makes a stone of the heart. Ladies and gentlemen, terror is terror is terror. And it must be condemned as such, plain and simple, until every leader in the world understands that. And it's interesting how our Arab friends and GCC countries are now figuring out. Until we all understand that, we will not succeed. Actions on either side to undermine trust only take us further away from the path of peace. Actions like at the UN to undermine Israel, or, and this is going to make Ron angry, or settlement activities. To be frank, Israel's government's steady and systematic process of expanding settlements, legalizing outposts, and seizing land is eroding, in my view, the prospect of a two-state solution. Bibi doesn't think so. Bibi thinks it can be accommodated, and I believe he believes it. I don't. Because trends in the ground, at least for the time being, are moving in the opposite direction toward a one-state reality, which is a reality that is dangerous. And folks, that's in direct conflict with the goal we all share of assuring Israel's future as a secure Jewish and democratic state at peace with its neighbors. Look, as I tell everyone I meet in Israel and anywhere else, I never tell another man or woman their business, never tell them what's in their interest. All I can do is say what I believe to be their interest as it relates to ours as well. We've stressed to both parties the need to take meaningful steps to demonstrate their commitment to a two-state solution that extends beyond mere words. And things must begin to happen now to build confidence. I know Bibi's talking about it, and I hear it being talked about on the Palestinian side, but there's got to be a little show me. This cannot continue to erode. But you know, and I know that's not a message that's particularly welcome here, but you know, no one ever doubts I mean what I say. The problem is sometimes I say all that I mean. But folks, I'm not entirely pessimistic about the dynamics in the region. In the past year, I've seen a remarkable consensus develop among Israelis as well as many of its Arab neighbors around three key issues that may have the ability to begin to change the dynamics on the ground. For the first time in my 40-plus years working on Israel, I found this kind of agreement, and I think it presents a chance, just a chance, but a chance nonetheless, to change the underlying dynamics in the region. First, there is widespread agreement among all parties that Iran's destabilizing activities are a concern for the entire region, for Israel and the Arab states as well. And by the way, that wasn't the case 7 years ago. It wasn't the case 5 years ago. It wasn't the case even 3 years ago. We've been speaking with Israel about this for decades, the concern, and they've been speaking with us about Iran. Today, it's also on the agenda of many of Israel's Arab neighbors. And I guarantee that it will be a major topic of discussion when President Obama meets with leaders of the Gulf Cooperation Council in Saudi Arabia next month. We've taken critical steps to strengthen our security cooperation with our Gulf partners so that they can engage diplomatically with Iran from a position of strength. And everyone in the region agrees that Iran's behavior continues to pose a problem. And it provides an opportunity, though. My mother would say, out of bad things, good things happen if you look hard enough. It provides an opportunity for cooperation across the Israeli-Arab divide. The joint view of the threat posed by Iran. Second, Israel and their neighbors share an overwhelming concern about the threat that radicalization poses to their own security. The Arab nations have begun to finally figure out that ISIS sees a caliphate not in Israel, but in Arab lands. That ISIS is a direct existential threat to their existence. It was a common thread in my discussions, not just with leaders in Jerusalem, but fully aware of this for a long time, but in Ramallah, Abu Dhabi, Amman, The inhumanity and outsized ambition of ISIL has crystallized the region's resolve to defeat this common foe. From Egypt to Turkey, to Israel, to Saudi Arabia, every nation is seized with preventing ISIL, Al-Qaeda, and other violent extremists from metastasizing, infecting their countries, bringing them down. And as we saw once again this weekend, that concern is real. That's why so many Arab states joined the counter-ISIL coalition, and many are members in more than name only, flying airstrikes, hosting coalition forces, contributing troops and resources and training. It's overwhelming in the self-interest of these nations throughout the region to share information and to work together to defeat ISIL. And that, too, could deepen cooperation. In one Arab country I met with, leaders, their military said, we have no closer military ally than Israel. No closer ally than Israel. There is no reason that the chance does not exist to broaden that kind of cooperation. Third, change on the ground potentially is the driving need for nations to secure enough energy to meet the needs of their people. That creates another enormous opportunity for Israel. Just as our natural gas resources are making the United States and North America the new epicenter of energy for the entire world, Israel is emerging as a dynamic hub in the Eastern Mediterranean. Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, all have growing needs and a desire not to be dependent on any one energy source. And Israel has both the resources and the capacity to provide for those needs. So we see the potential for deals that benefit everyone, deals that could increase the channels of cooperation, deepening economic ties between Israel and its once hostile neighbors. I spoke about these issues with Prime Minister Netanyahu and King Abdullah during my trip, and I spoke about it with Prime Minister Davutoglu and President Erdogan in Turkey in January. We're working with our friends to try to bring these deals to fruition. Their decision, Israel's decision, but we're prepared to help. There's no guarantee that any of this will happen. Tough choices are needed, backed by the political will to change. And the full potential of this cooperation with these three changes in the region is more likely to be realized if meaningful political progress is able to begin to be made between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But for the first time in my career, I see the potential for relations between Israel and many of its historic antagonists beginning to thaw. Whether or not dynamic change in the Middle East or relationships open up between Israel and its neighbors, one thing is certain. The United States will constantly and forever have Israel's back. Just like we have since Israel's founding in 1948. I hate to say this because it dates me, but I've worked with 8 presidents. As we Catholics say, bless me, Father. I don't know. 8 presidents. I can't be that old. But I mean this sincerely. No administration has done more to advance the security of Israel than we have. Our unprecedented security cooperation makes me incredibly proud. And our commitment to Israel's qualitative military aid is unquestionable, will not change. And we will make sure that Israel has the best equipment available. When we deliver F-35 jets later this year, Israel will be the only nation in the Middle East with 5th-generation aircraft. And we will will continue to make sure Israel has the capacity to defend itself by itself, for itself, in an incredibly dangerous neighborhood. Look, during a time of tight budgets and difficult politics, Israel's security has always been a priority. $23.5 billion in foreign military financing in the 7 years we've been in office. An additional $3 billion to help Israel design and build one of the most advanced missile defense systems in the world. And on top of that, another $1.9 billion for munitions just last year. By now, Iron Dome is a household name. Every dollar a meaningful investment in saving the lives of innocent Israelis. And we're successfully tested both David Sling and Arrow 3 system in December. Both systems bringing us closer to coming in line to protect Israel against even wider range of rocket and missile attacks. Israel is stronger and more secure today because of the Obama-Biden administration, period. Period. Not in spite of it, as some of our critics would have you believe, but because of it. Folks, now discussions are underway regarding a new memorandum of understanding, a so-called MOU, that will govern the next decade of security cooperation between our two nations. It will, without a doubt, be the most generous security assistance package in the history of the United States. I'm hopeful that we can work out all the details. We had some discussions when I was there, even though I didn't go to negotiate that issue. As I told Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Rivlin, Israel may not get everything it asked for, but it will get everything it needs. Of course, America's commitment to Israel's security is about more than weapon systems and foreign military financing. It's about making sure, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, it's about making sure that Israel will always exist, strong and capable, as the ultimate guarantor of security for Jewish people around the world. That is the abiding moral obligation we have. Never, never, never again. And without Israel, there is no guarantee. I've been criticized in some corners for saying if there were no Israel, we'd have to invent one for our own self-interest as well. Look, folks, after all the time I've been doing this, we still have yet to defeat, and the reason why we need Israel so badly, the pernicious and persistent evil of anti-Semitism. It continues to rear its ugly head. It's on the rise in too many parts of the world, particularly in Europe. When swastikas are painted on synagogues, when Jewish people are targeted in terrorist attacks, when thousands of European Jews immigrate to Israel out of fear, when a seemingly organized effort to discredit, delegitimize, and isolate Israel persists on the international stage. It's dangerous. It's wrong. And every time we encounter it, we have an obligation to speak out against it. Howard and some will remember back in the 90s when I was ranking member and chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. I insisted on holding hearings on anti-Semitism in Europe and Russia. You may recover in the popular press I was criticized for doing it. People questioned if it was necessary or if we were going to legislate European values. I made no apologies. I make none now. It was absolutely necessary then, and it's absolutely necessary now. Because, quite frankly, silence too quickly becomes complicity. We must speak out where we find it. So I'm going to continue to speak out here today and for the rest of my life. We have to stand up against the attempts to delegitimize Israel on the world side. No nation, including Israel, is immune to legitimate criticism, but it should not be unfairly singled out. So we'll continue to stand against the biased resolutions and attempts to delegitimize Israel at the United Nations. We'll continue to ensure that Israel is represented on critical committees just like other nations. And we will continue to push back against the calls here in the United States for people to boycott, disinvest, or sanction Israel. It's wrong. It's wrong. I know it's not popular to say, but it's wrong. Because as the Jewish people know better than any other people, any action that marginalizes one ethnic or religious group imperils us all. It's incumbent upon us, all of us, to stand up against those who traffic in pernicious stereotypes, who seek to scare and divide us for political gain. Because the future belongs to the bridge builders, not the wall builders. That's why we're here. Why does AIPAC exist? It exists to build bridges in order to extend that unbroken chain of generations binding Israelis and U.S. citizens together. That's why we need all 4,000 of you young students here tonight. We need every single one of you. It's your obligation. It's your obligation to do what you're doing. Some wondered in this last trip why I took my son Bo's children to Israel with me. They said they're young. They are. But they did the same thing for my Bo when he was a kid. I took his brother, his sister, my other grandchildren, almost all of them, to Dachau and to Israel. My grandchildren don't need a college degree. They don't have to be 25 to understand it. They can feel it. They can taste it. They can see it. They know it. It must be part of who they are. As my father assured it was a part of me. They need to know, as you young people in here need to remind your generation. They need to know over time what happened, why Israel is so essential. Israel is a place that creeps into your soul, inhabits it. It's done it with all of you. It's done it with a lot of Christians like me. Let me close with two last thoughts. First, I want to thank many of you who are here tonight, like Barbie and Larry Weinberg, Norm Brownstein, Lonnie Kaplan, Sam Lauder, Michael Adler. Look, so many of you who also aren't here, like Sam Adler, Tom Lantos from Delaware, Sam Mars, Harvey Rubenstein, Rabbi Gwertz. I had the privilege of learning from all of you. as well as serving with great men like Abe Ribicoff and Hubert Humphrey and Scoop Jackson. All of you, and I mean this sincerely, and many who I've not mentioned, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for mentoring me. Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for standing with me. I truly, truly, truly appreciate it and owe you. And second, I want to apologize for telling many of you the story I'm sure you've heard me say before, but this is mainly directed to the 4,000 students that are here. I got elected to the United States Senate when I was 29 years old. I was raised by a father who was absolutely committed to the establishment of the nation state of Israel, a man who was high school educated, well-read. Our dinner table was a place we sat down to have conversation and incidentally eat. Oh, I'm not joking. He was really proud. At age 30, barely 30, a sworn-in new senator, I went to Israel. I got to meet Golda Meir. I met with every prime minister since then. But I'll never forget, sitting in her office, I say this to you students, it was after the Six-Day War, and she kept flipping those maps she had. She had that bank of maps. There were like, you know, one big bank, and there were like 8 maps, and flipping them up and down and pointing to every encounter and chain smoking while she was doing it. And she had a guy sitting next to me that I met for the first time, an assistant named Rabin, for real. And after about 45 minutes of this, and I was increasingly depressed as she talked about what was a raid against the Israelis and how they had to continue to fight. And all of a sudden she looked at me, and this is the God's truth. She said, "Would you like a photograph?" I thought, well, yes, Madam Prime Minister. We opened those double doors into that section that's like a foyer outside our office, and there were a bank of photographers there. And we walked outside. We're standing next to one another, looking at the cameras, not saying anything. There was no statement being made. Photographs were being taken. And looking straight ahead, she said to me, standing to her right, "Don't look so sad, Senator. We have a secret weapon in our battle against the Arabs." And I thought she was about to tell me something that was classified. I swear to God, I thought I was the only one she ever said this to. And I unwittingly, I was supposed to be looking straight ahead, turned and said, "Madam Prime Minister." She said, "Senator, we have no place else to go." I tell that story, and I say to you students, I tell it over and over again because it was a piercing moment for me, a formative event that has shaped my life for decades. It remains as relevant today as when she said it over 40 years ago. We have nowhere else to go. It still captures the fire and the steel, the optimism, determination of the Israeli people. It still brings the vivid light, the plight of Jewish people everywhere. It still ignites the raw passion that supporters of the Israelis feel to them in the marrow of their bones. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been honored for, 30-some years to be part of AIPAC events from the first time I was elected. I still support the work and mission of this organization. And to make sure that there will always be in Israel, to make sure there'll always be a place to go. That's why we are here. God bless you all, and thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our evening program. Thank you and good night.